Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. How are you all doing? My name is Amanda Ellis, and a very warm welcome to my channel. Do you know, yesterday I put up a trailer for this channel, summing up who I am, what I'm about, and one of the things I said on it is that I do weekly free videos and have been doing so since 2012. Over that period of time, there have been moments such as this and this type of video where I come on absolutely knowing that I do not have all of the answers, because nobody does. But hopefully I'm a safe landing spot for you to arrive at, where we can discuss some of the most difficult subjects of the day. Indeed, they are subjects that many spiritual teachers will not touch with a barge pole. And I get it, because they can, by nature, create divisive discussion. And that is the absolute antithesis of what I try to be. So this video, which although, yes, is centred on a uprising, to be perfectly honest, that is happening in the UK right now, something called Operation Raise the Colours, and I will talk to you about what that is and how it is manifesting. But ultimately, at its heart, it is about a fight for national identity. Also a moment in time which is very cathartic, where we as a nation take a good hard look at what our shared values are. What are the values in terms of what we've been? What do we wish to be in the future? And as I say, even though this video is about the United Kingdom, I would imagine most of what I'm going to say in this is relevant to you in many, many other parts of the world. Certainly much of Europe, certainly much of USA, Canada, I'm sure further afield as well. I'm a little bit out of touch with what's going on in Australia and New Zealand, but I suspect there'll be a lot of what I'm talking about here that is very, very relevant. So where to begin, basically? I have got some notes in front of me. I was going to put off doing this video, and I thought, no, I'll do it tomorrow where I've got a bit more structure and I can think about it more. And then I just thought, no, just get on with it, Amanda, because the time is now. And actually, to have humbleness, which is what we all need, to come to a discussion or come to a subject saying, I know this, but I don't know that, would be very healing for our world right now. Because ultimately, the state of division and separation that we find ourselves in right now, and the very heightened tensions and feelings, are a result of not having been listened to, not having been heard, and actually over and above national identity and who has the right to be here and settle here, as well as what feels like a scramble for the resources in any one particular country. Over and above all of that, what Archangel Metatron is saying to me is that the analogy is in a relationship breakup, where there are lots of things that have been bothering you for maybe weeks, months, years, sometimes decades of not having been heard, little things which turn into bigger things. And then there is just that one factor that breaks up the relationship, or that brings an explosive energy. It's like the volcano that has to burst. So even though Operation Raising the Colours is centred around the national flag, who we are as a nation, immigration, and I would like to make the distinction between illegal immigration and legal immigration, because UK as a country has always welcomed for many decades legal immigration. And indeed, our last Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, was the son of immigrants from India. And there are many immigrants that have come to the United Kingdom that have contributed an enormous amount to this country, and actually in many ways are the backbone of a lot of public services in particular that we need. Particularly, for example, the National Health Service. I don't have the statistics to hand, but there is a high proportion of immigrant labour that come in to take jobs which other people are not either training for or are willing to do. And this is also true with regards to agriculture. You know, picking of the fruit and the vegetables at harvest time. But of course, people coming into any country have got a skill set, and ideally that skill set contributes to the overall abundance and health and wealth of any country. You know, the truth is that if you wanted to emigrate to somewhere like Canada or Australia, but I'm really referencing Canada in particular because I know a little bit more about that, but unless it's changed, there was always a point system where you had to prove that you had a skill or you had something to offer to the country that you were going to settle in. So I would just like to park legal immigration routes and people that do come in contributing a great deal to this country versus really what I think is behind the energy of uprising and turmoil right now, which has manifested in this Operation Raising the Colours campaign, which is illegal immigration. People coming in, particularly on boats across the English Channel, and many of them, some of them will be fleeing war zone, but there seems to be a lot of evidence that a lot of them are economic immigrants. They're wanting to come particularly for the benefits that they get here because they've already maybe refused to stay in other places in Europe that they could have settled in, but you know, it wasn't to their liking. So I know that's a bit of a generalisation and not all are in that bracket, but I do feel as though I can speak on this subject. I live in a town which is very much in the firing line of all of this right now. I don't actually live in Bournemouth. I'm a few miles out of it. But, you know, when you go into Bournemouth, you can definitely see a change in the town over the last 6 months in particular, linked into 3 migrant hotels that have sprung up. And there are an extraordinary number of primarily men of a younger age, milling around, doesn't look like they've got anything to do. And there've been a spate of attacks which have been very publicly broadcast in mainstream media. So I'm not going to go over all that. I did say in my last UK video that my personal view on it, I think the most spiritual view that I can take is that we should always offer an opportunity as a place of refuge for people who are genuinely seeking safety from a place of a land where maybe they might be tortured or there's been war or destitution in some shape or form. But, you know, if crimes are committed, particularly against women and young children, which is one of the big issues right now we have in the UK, the threat to women and young children, perceived or actual, that is the fear that is out there. And if a crime is committed, then they shouldn't be allowed to maybe settle and continue to stay. Now, many other European countries have got a much firmer rule basically with regards to immigration, particularly illegal immigration, and those arriving in other countries. I think Germany have implemented it. I can't remember off the top of my head which others. Please fill me in if you're European in the comments below so people can learn. But, you know, they are just sent straight back. Nigel Farrage, if he gets into power, which is likely the next election, but having said that, a lot can change in 3 years. It's just where the numbers are right now, the voting statistics are, intended voting statistics. He has the most percentage points, and it's a completely new party that's been formed. He has said that there will be 600,000 deportations if they get into power, and it will be a case of if you arrive illegally, you will be leaving pretty much, if not the same day, pretty promptly on the next plane or boat out of here. Now, where I'm coming from with this video is I have always taught a unity path, what I call the violet pill teaching. Now, it feels as though I know I'm not alone in trying to maintain this state of grace more than anything, and wanting to sit at a table where I can learn from others in a energy right now, as I say, which is very volatile. But if you've come to this video and you've watched this far, this is what you're going to get from me. I'm going to give you some downloads and insights that I have received from Spirit with regards to, more than anything, things that they would like you to think about if you are actually trying to be on a path of self-mastery. Again, if you've watched my channel for a few years, you will know that I created 2 oracle decks so far. And more than anything, they're my work, that they encompass so much of what I believe in. One is devoted to Archangel Metatron, the other is devoted to Christ consciousness. But both of them are self-mastery decks. They have within them 55 things for you to look at, aspects for you to work on. And the thing is that they come into their power and their own, these 55 energies, or 110, when we face the most difficult times. Not when life is just very easy and we're not being triggered, we're not being angered or, in a very volatile situation. They come into their own now. So I'm going to reference them, and I'm also going to pull some cards from both of them for guidance for those of you that genuinely are wanting to try to offer your best at this time with regards to the chaos that is going on in our country and many other countries. Because let's be very clear, right now we've got 2 very loud, very opposed camps. And both of them have a right to express what they feel. There is a reason why they're feeling as they feel. The problem is that neither are listening to the other. And you have a government in the centre who is effectively doing their own thing. So, the 2 camps. Over here, we have got the people right now who are feeling very misunderstood, unheard, frightened, fearful, unsure of the direction in which their country is going, not understanding the changes that they can see with their own physical eyes. Remember that Metatron said to us, this isn't just about one thing. This is about many things that have been happening over many years. And in particular, the COVID years I will bring into this, which created a underbelly of trauma in many. It has irrevocably changed the structure and fabric of our societies. You've only got to go into your local towns, particularly here in the UK. The one I live in used to be a very bustling seaside town. It still is a seaside town. We still have lots of visitors that come here. But it was very buoyant, lots of shops, cafes, alive, safe. I'm not looking through rose-coloured spectacles. Of course, it had its issues. But it was effectively safe to walk around. Lots of trade, lots of business, lots of retail. And since 2020, the town centre is pretty much a ghost town, with the exception of a few main shops which have clung on to the bitter end. I'm just bringing that in because it's just one aspect whereby the population has seen enormous change to the detriment with regards to the fabric of the country. What makes your town your town? What gives identity to where you live? And then, of course, we've also had the dismantling through all sorts of reasons, but economic crisis as well, with regards to public services, which in this country have always been free, with regards to, for example, the National Health Service. Very real problems in terms of accessing basic care, which previous generations, including our own, only a matter of years ago, it had its issues and it had its problems, but nowhere near the scale that we've got now. Effectively, what we've got is a country in crisis, and the issue of illegal immigration in particular seems to be the tipping point for many, whereby they look at the dismantling of structures, the disintegration of the old, the loss of identity, and what can feel like to them as the takeover of another energy which they do not understand, which they do not believe wants to integrate. And raise the colours. Effectively, what's happening is that across the country, you are seeing the raising of the flag. Now, I remember the first time I went to America, and it's like, God, everyone's got a flag, almost hanging from their rooftop or something. Usually in the UK, traditionally, we might put out a flag. I've put a flag out before, things like the Queen's Jubilee or football, England are in the World Cup, something like that. And a lot of people will do the same. But generally, most people haven't, up to this point, had flags flying outside their homes. So to see the St George's flag, which is the flag of England, or the Union Jack, which is the flag of all the four countries together, flying from lampposts, as we can see now, it is a new thing. And this side are feeling as though by doing this, they are showing their patriotism. They are also saying enough with regards to the huge wave of illegal immigration that's coming into the country. In my hometown, there is graffiti effectively on the beach promenade with the St George's flags saying we are full. There are flags flying literally within half a mile from me, all the way down a parade of shops. It's very, very evident. People painting the St George's flag onto roundabouts, onto bollards. I will just say, to protect my own back here, by the way, because I need to do this legally, I am not asking anybody to do that or endorsing that behaviour. I am just reporting what is happening right now in our country. But many people over here are just very, very angry with regards to what has been going on and the dumbing down of what it means to be British, almost being made to feel as though we should be ashamed of our nationality and our heritage. And this is almost like a two fingers up, saying, well, we're not ashamed of it. We're proud to be British. We're proud of who we are. And also, you need to be concentrating on us here rather than just this continual wave upon wave of people coming in who are getting benefits over a lot of the people here. For example, the homeless or the sick or the poor who are not getting the services, who have got waiting lists years long or certainly months long to get social housing, whereas you can come in on a boat across the channel and you're put up in a hotel straight away. You're given pocket money, whatever it is. I'm not going to go into the list of benefits that they get. But this side here sees that this is unjust. And so there have been a lot of protests outside hostels and hotels where these migrants have been housed in towns such as mine. And it is a growing phenomenon. This, the protesting, but also the flag waving, basically. It's interesting that in the week that this is really starting to take hold, because if it's taking hold in my little town, it's going to be taking hold in other places. Make no mistake about that. I note that in USA, Donald Trump passed I don't know if it's actually been rubber stamped now, but he's trying to criminalise the burning of the Stars and Stripe flag there. And I don't want us to get too into the politics. I mean, we know that in the UK, there's a lot of the people here who are protesting are probably anti-Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister. As soon as I say Trump's name, of course, we could get the anti-Trump brigade out saying, well, of course he's going to do that and how awful. I did read that Hillary Clinton also once asked for this or wanted this to happen as well. But it just strikes me as interesting that across the water, we've got Trump who is criminalising the burning of the flag, the defacement of the flag. And here, right now in the UK, it's almost as though we are frightened of showing the flag for fear of being labelled by this other side, who I haven't talked about yet, who are saying that this lot are all just racist. I even saw something, and it's become almost beyond parody. I was on Facebook yesterday, and I think I did write a comment. I said, is this parody? But I don't think it was. It was an advert for Marks and Spencer's, a very British brand, as British as they come. And Marks and Spencer's, like many brands, have used the Union Jack on their carrier bags, on their advertising, because why would they not? They're a British brand. And somebody had put something along the lines of, look, now we need to boycott M&S because look what they're doing. There seems to be a complete and utter lack of common sense. And it's as though, I do think it's being agenderised as well with regards to the flag, but we'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, so it's just ironic, I feel. As I say, one side of the channel is like, don't you touch our flag or you're going to be in trouble. And right now, it's almost like, well, is it safe to put a flag up because I'm going to be judged by this lot over here, or worse, am I going to get a knock on the door in the middle of the night because I've done something I shouldn't be under this present government who are making people very fearful in terms of what can we say? This is why this is at boiling point. Anyway, this other side of the camp, I'm sure, are made up of good people, as are people here. And the type of energy that would be here would be keep the borders open. There's room for all. That there should be no limits on that. That, human rights are human rights. I know that Nigel Farrage, for example, has said that to deport 600,000 would require tearing up various human rights treaties. Well, this side would be in horror at that. And there's definitely a feeling here of all are welcome, not understanding or wanting to listen to maybe this side, but equally this side are not wanting to listen to this side either. So that was a long introduction, but I have to give that introduction because otherwise, if you're in a different country, you're not going to have a clue what I'm going on about. Where I'm at is I'm trying to be in the middle position. I can absolutely understand some of the sentiment that's here. And I can also understand the sentiment that's here also. And from a spiritual perspective, of course, it's a tough one because, I'm about unity, and ultimately, not in my lifetime, probably not in your lifetime either, I think we will get to a place where there will be less borders, if not no borders. But that can only happen when we've come to a place of integration, maybe, respect for each other, a sharing of resource that is there, and also a dispersion of that resource across the whole planet. Because if you imagine a little island, because we are only a little island, the UK, we're tiny. Put us into Australia or into USA, and we probably wouldn't even make up a state. Okay, so we're tiny, but we've got a huge influx of people wanting to come here. It's completely and utterly unsustainable, actually, without, as I said in previous videos, the whole island sinking. But these are very, very difficult days, because it's not just, I don't want this video to go too far off my intention, but I am seeing further into the future, and I have said this before, which is that we're going to get to resource wars at some point, the fighting over water, unless there is some type of reduction in the overall population of our world. And of course, I'm not saying I want that, I'm just saying that Earth has a mechanism within her, I believe, whereby there is maybe only, she can only house a certain number of people, however many billions it is, on her planet, before maybe the planet starts to die because the resources just can't cope. And that has been seen through history, whether it be through war, whether it be through natural disaster, whether it be through something like famine. Now, we're not asking for any of this to come in, but it's almost as though nature has a way of balancing out the population. At the moment, we've got huge population growth, but there is projected to be much a reduction in population, particularly in many of the places right now that have got this huge crisis with regards to illegal immigration. Again, just something to think of. If the birth rate is below the replenishment rate in certain countries in Europe, which it is, or we are hovering as a nation just above it, but hardly at all, but you've got another section of the world who are having a lot of babies and who are not having an issue with repopulation, then there is going to be a natural flow to places that can house you. So I would like this video to be an intelligent discussion of these very complex dynamics, and for us just to remember our humanity and our spirituality in all of this. I've written down here in my notes how to follow a violet path in a time of fear. How can we follow a violet path in a time of uncertainty? How can we follow a violet path in a time where it is unknown? How can we follow a violet path in a time of many agendas? The answer to that is we try. We try. That is self-mastery. Because I tell you what, it is far easier to go into a very far end of either of the camps and just throw slings and arrows and mud and words at each other. It's not actually going to get us anywhere. Neither is the energy of feeling victimized or feeling powerless. So these are a few of the things that I would like to raise with us, with you today. Okay, I'll start with a danger. So I would say in both camps there is a danger of mob rule. There is a danger of safety in numbers. There is a danger of troublemakers, and these troublemakers have already infiltrated both camps. So this camp here contains, for example, within it, mothers such as myself who are worried about their daughters' safety going forward, with pure hearts. But also there will have been infiltration with regards to people who are waving the national flag for very racist connotations, yeah? There will be extremists in this camp just as much as there are good, hardworking, honest people, including British people of different ethnicity. So they may have, like Rishi Sunak, had parents that immigrated from India or Pakistan or wherever they've come from. It doesn't really matter. Turkey, Syria, but they are they are British citizens, they've got British passports, they've integrated, and they are also aghast at this flood of illegal immigrants that are trying to effectively sink the whole island. So you've got a whole mixture in here. You've got people with good intent, you've got all ages, you've got all creeds, you've got all colours, but you've also got the racist bigots, yeah? This side over here have also got their infiltrators. So you've got very well-meaning people who are maybe more liberal with regards to their views on immigration, all are welcome. But you've also absolutely got infiltration of a much harder, militant left. Indeed, some of the protests that have been happening outside the hostels, there's a lot of film of, masked up, I mean, they look like militia, I'm not saying they are, but masked up men, organised counter-protests, basically, all with exactly the same, holding exactly the same, whatever you call it, protest slogan. It looks to me like they've been shipped in, it's organised. So, but as I say, within this camp, we've also just got well-meaning people who have got, an open heart. They have a very different view to the people over here. They think there is enough resource, there is enough for everybody. And so both sides have been infiltrated by a harder right or a harder left. The danger, of course, is that the well-meaning people on both sides who would sit down around a unity table aren't even being allowed to. So there is that. So the danger of mob rule, but also, unfortunately, we live in times where I'm often very get disillusioned, I'm sure you do too, at how easily people can be manipulated, at how easily people can jump on a bandwagon without even understanding what they're even protesting about. I shouldn't laugh, but honestly, just the intelligence level sometimes. There was a video on some social media and they were interviewing some older people who had emigrated to Spain. Lots of Brits emigrate to Spain. My grandfather did, actually, for a short while. Anyway, these elderly ladies were being interviewed, and the interview said, well, why did you leave the UK? And they said, oh, there's too many immigrants there. Not realising that they themselves are immigrants in Spain, So... And of course, there are, I'm sure, many Spaniards that would think that the British have taken over parts of Spain, little parts of Britain in Spain. Is that okay? Well, not really, I don't think. So we've got to be intelligent about this. But anyway, back to my point about some people just signing up, not even realising what they're signing up for. And when I saw the flags flying in my hometown the other day, I was 50-50 on it, because I do understand where this group is coming from. I have seen with my own eyes the deterioration in public services, and there isn't enough money, basically. There has to be a point where we have to say we have to look after our own, and then if we've got surplus, obviously look after others as well. But, we can't just look after others to the detriment of our own people. I don't believe that's right. So I do, and I've always been patriotic, that if you've watched me over the years. I love the royal family, and I don't care if people don't like that, I do. I love Britain, I love our heritage, I love our culture. So, when I see a flag, I'll feel proud about that. But I also could feel when I was seeing the flags flying that some of them had been put up with an energy that wasn't about that. It was more about, as I say, F you to somebody walking by of a different skin colour or nationality, and that made me feel deeply uncomfortable. And I just really do feel for people in our country right now who who have a different coloured skin, but who are British, who are born here, who have integrated, who are offering something valuable, who are part of the fabric of our nation, and I'm sure must feel threatened by the more extreme aspects here. So what I think is very important for us as spiritual beings to do is to model the type of behaviour that we wish to see in others, which is tolerance. It's about listening. By tolerance, by the way, I don't mean being a doormat and just being walked over. I just mean not being hot-headed, not rushing to vent or give in maybe to our more shadowy impulses. One of the things that's quite interesting that Metatron said to me today is he said, this is actually a fantastic opportunity for not just UK, but all countries around the world, USA, huge swathes of Europe, all countries really where this issue is in place, to, how did he put it? Let me just get his actual words. An opportunity to clear out latent ancestral or cultural racism. Because you don't have to admit this on a public forum, but I think many people, if they really feel into maybe their indignation with regards to another boatload coming in, is it all about money and resource, or is there something else there linked into skin colour, for example, racism? Now, you don't need to answer me that in the comments. I'm wanting you to think about that, because what Metatron's saying is that there is ancestral and cultural racism across most cultures and countries. That's the truth of it. And often the ones who are shouting the loudest that you're a racist actually look at your own backyard. Look at your own backyard. So I don't need to share this, but I am going to share it just in absolute transparency. I don't regard myself as a racist. I've never said anything consciously that I believe to be racist, or I just don't think I have that within me. I've lived in the East End of London decades ago. I was the only white woman actually on the street. It didn't bother me. Having said that, though, I've only got to go back 3 generations. It was my great-grandfather, who I never knew. He apparently marched with the black shirts. Mosley, was he Mosley? I can't remember what the guy was called. Fascists, basically, marching through London, the black shirts. So, has all that been cleansed from the family line? Whoever he was and what he stood for at that time, his views were his views. Through the lens of history, yeah, absolutely. Fascist, racist. How far did that come down the family line? Has it completely been cleansed? Has it completely been stopped? Or are there still some tendrils or roots that might be being, what Metatron's showing me is it's a bit like a dormant fire, which you think is out, but it only requires a little bit of wind to fan the flames which are still there in your family line or your ancestral line. And I suspect it's in many people of all cultures, because it's at this point you always think of sort of, I don't know what you think of, but I just know across all cultures, I'm just going to put it that way, there is racism shown to many different groups. It's not all just white versus black or black versus white. There is racism within different pockets between, Pakistani and Indian, for example, that type of thing. So we need to think far deeper. Ultimately, I believe that we're all linked to each other. If you ever have your ancestry done, you many times will see that you're linked into other cultures that you never even knew anything about. I've got a Native American ancestry within my family line that I didn't know about until we got DNA tests done, a few years ago, as an example. But equally, if you then think about it from a past life perspective, you've been a black man, You've been a white woman. You've been a Sikh. You've been a Muslim. You've been a Christian. You've been a crusader. You've been an invader. You've been the invaded. You know, if you think about it from a spiritual perspective, there is a lot to get our teeth into with this, okay? So just keeping it neat, that is the strapline Metatron gave me, an opportunity to clear out latent ancestral or cultural racism. And you do that amidst the chaos. It's almost as though we're being asked to not be part of the chaos, because if your job as a light worker isn't to get in there, roll up your sleeves and start wading into fights and arguments. Is it? I mean, that's not my definition of a light worker. A light worker's job is to sow light rather than division or discord. So we've got to be really conscious of not only our actions, our words, but our thoughts at this time. I will just say this in case I forget, but I want to pull a card on the ancestry stuff. You know, my daughter the other day, I came up in conversation. I said, have you heard of Operation Raise the Colours? And she said, yeah, what is that? She said, I've seen flags. And so I tried to explain it in as sensitive a way as possible, in a way that honoured both sides of the argument, you know, the debate, because I felt that was our job. And I wrote something about that, that we can be, to be the example to our children. Where did I write it? Wrote it somewhere. Oh, I don't know now. Oh, the example we set to it's just about the example that we set to our children is really important. Try to show the best example you can. I think sometimes we feel as though we need to be the finished product, you know, but none of us are. We've all got work to do on ourselves. And particularly with regards to these most difficult subjects in our world right now, we're all going to struggle to a degree. But it's about whether you're trying to get to a place of at least understanding. That doesn't mean you can't champion change if you think that something is wrong, but it's doing it in the right way, in the most loving way, in a way that's not disrespecting the other side, that's not getting into the slings and arrows. But anyway, let's get back to this thing about ancestors, because I did want to pull another card to go with it from the Metatron deck. I have actually got 3 cards out. So I've got the ancestors card. The other one that I think is very relevant is leadership. We're being asked to lead. We're being asked to lead. And I've got the card of the new dawn. And the new dawn shows the arrival out of a dark tunnel. And the dark tunnel is where we're at now. And interestingly, Metatron is saying this dark tunnel is also linked into our ancestry. This is brilliant, because he's saying that if New Earth is to arrive, is it not true that everything has to be cleaned and cleansed and purged? Yes. I mean, we know that, but yet we don't want to apply it to the difficult subjects. So the subject of race, immigration is the tool that allows us to have this discussion with ourselves, cleaning up our own backyard, the family line being cleansed. It starts and ends with you, with what you do, with how you're behaving. Let me just see if there's one other card to go with this. One of you sweetly reminded me to drink water when I'm doing these videos. So I will. Hold on. We've got the energy of signs. Spirit is with us. Spirit is with us. Just looking at my notes here. Another thing that I've written down, going back to Nigel Farrage and his plans to deport 600,000, I think he's also planning to pay people to leave, £2,500 to leave. That brings up a lot of thoughts, doesn't it? Because I think if you're fairly comfortable, I mean, I'm comfortable, I'm comfortably off, and I thank God for that, and I don't take it for granted. I've also worked hard to get to this place where I'm comfortably off. Not rich, just comfortably off. But I think we can forget how hard it is for some people right now in this land, and maybe you're one of them, £2,500. You've come here illegally, but here's $2,500 to go on your way. That brings up feelings. It brings up feelings. Does it not? Amongst our most destitute, There are people in this country who can't afford to feed their children properly, can't afford to clothe their children properly, don't have basic accommodation or needs met. It's not racist to bring this up and say, hold on a minute, what about us? The government isn't listening. Okay, another point, I feel like I need a bell or something. Just let me use a spray at this point. This is just the sage spray. I just want to make the distinction between different chapters, as it were, in this video. Again, I don't have all the answers to what I'm about to say here, but it's just something I'm feeling from Metatron. What we've got here is many of the immigrants coming in are Muslim in particular. Now, there's nothing wrong with being Muslim. I've got Muslim friends. One anyway. I haven't got loads of Muslim friends because I haven't got loads of friends, actually. I've got a very small little band, tight little band, but one of them is Muslim. But the point about it is that, again, it's extreme Islam. It's when, I won't get into extreme Islam and what that's about because you probably know anyway. But we've got here, thinking about the arrival of New Earth, this is almost like a final battle between what I just want to call organised religion, of which Christianity would be part, but also Islam as well, the extremes of it. The battle between that extreme representation of religion, what you can do, what you can't do, what you can think, what you can't think, and how invasive that can be into everyday life. The borderline between where religion, at its most extreme, comes into every aspect of your day, versus a more fluid spirituality, which is really more flowing into New Earth. I believe there's always going to be a place for religion and spirituality in New Earth. I do believe that. But what I'm really trying to say is it feels as though it's like a storm that's building with regards to fundamentalism and extremism, with regards to many of the world religions, but we're particularly seeing it with Islam. And how that plays out is how that plays out. I'm not quite sure. Let's just pull a card from the Christ Consciousness deck. I don't know whether it will answer it or not. I don't even know what the question is, to be honest, but I suppose the answer is in the deck itself, because Christ Consciousness isn't a it isn't a religion. It's a way of being. Christ Consciousness is a way of being. You don't have to go into church to be in Christ Consciousness. Christ Consciousness is about living from the heart. It's the template. It's being it. It's not about sitting in a pew every Sunday and being lectured at and told what it is you have to think and what you can do and what you can't do. And hold on, you're divorced, so get out of church, that type of thing. It's none of that. It's a template. It's a way of being. So in many ways, the deck is the answer. One of the cards that has flipped out is the Magi, signs and divine timing. I'm just going to take that, actually, because we got the other card from the Metatron deck was also signs. We've got two cards linked into signs. I think what Spirit is basically saying to us is you are going to be shown how to do this. Right now, it feels as though there is an unnavigable wall in front of us. How the hell do we get past this? I'm hearing you, Amanda. There are some things for me to think about here. There are qualities within myself to process, feel into, heal maybe. But, this is just so much bigger than any one thing. It feels like we are being engulfed. And I'm talking here about energy more than anything. It just feels unnavigable. And we see these patterns that many people are protesting about and getting irate about happening in so many countries. Spirit is saying, signs from Spirit, we are with you. And you will be led. You will be led. I'm hearing to the promised land, but that is, of course, an analogy. You know, it's as though, think of it in terms of the parting of the Red Sea. Before the parting of the Red Sea, it was just horror and brutality, to be honest, and fleeing energy. And then the waters pass and somehow they get to the other side. So somehow we're going to get to the other side. And what is the other side? The other side is a more unified place. It's not fighting over resource. It's going to have to be the miracle zone that gets us there, and we're going to have to let go of many lifetimes and many cloaks that we are all holding with regards to this is mine, this is my identity. One of the first things I wrote here in my notes is, who are we without something to unite behind, whether that be a flag, or any other identity. Who are we without something to unite behind? And I do feel as though, over and above, yes, I understand why these flags are being raised, it's also to do with, I need to show that I am something, because right now I feel as though I am nothing. Add into, or not nothing, it's like I don't know who I am. Add into all of this the advent of AI, which is changing our world so fast. What Metatron is showing me is like the rug is being pulled out from under people, and they don't know who they are. They don't understand this new age that we're moving into. They don't understand why everything's falling apart. And so immigration is just one of these big subjects that people can get a hook into, and it's like, oh well, that's what we can blame. If we can just raise the flag again, we're going to be all right. It's not as simple as that. Who are we without something to unite behind? And for those of you that are really understanding what I'm saying here, really think into that. Who are we without something to unite behind? That is an opportunity for massive growth with regards to self-awareness, sovereignty, that I'm British, but I'm actually, this is who I am. I'm Amanda, you are James, you are Sandra, whoever you are, I am that. Britishness just happens to be one aspect of who I am, but it's not my whole identity. Of course it's not. It's as though it's very extreme, because right now that is the only identity that some of these people can cling on to. It's the flag or nothing. Whereas actually, you're so much more than that. Anyway, I've laboured that point. The other aspect I want you to think about is, over and above, Metatron saying this isn't about colour, this is about values. What he means by that is, for successful harmony and balance in any country, there needs to be a sharing of values. Now, this is tricky because, of course, we're in times right now in our world, and I'm going to USA, where the values are so divided between left and right, and never the twain shall meet, that it's like there's already division in terms of what are American values before you add in another ingredient to the mix in terms of another culture coming in a huge way. Well, I know that's being blocked at the moment, but you take my meaning. So it's like, what are our values? In an ideal world and an ideal solution to this chaos we've got at the moment, we need to have, for example, multi-faith leaders standing up and putting Britain's interests first, their community's interests first, realising that all are welcome in that community. No sort of little enclaves of this is my area, that's your area. But again, there are reflections of that, of course, aren't there, with regards to, for example, London. This is a poor area, this is a rich area, So then we have race on top. This is that area, I'm not going to label it, you know what I'm saying. But ideally, yes, multi-faith leaders stepping up. And at this point, I know I'm going to be shot down in flames for this, but I've probably turned the comments off already by this point. King Charles is getting a lot of flack online with regards to he's just for the Muslims, he's not British, he should be standing up for us. I have said constantly for many videos, Prince Charles, as he was for decades, was always about multi-faith. He has always reached out to other communities. He still goes to church, I would imagine, most Sundays. He is still a Christian. He knows that that is what he is. He hasn't converted to Islam, no, and he's not about to. The point I'm trying to make is there is a potential here for Charles, not to step up and just be in my camp, but to be in all camps, for him to stand in the centre as a powerful figure. The problem is we've got a lot of very powerful spiritual light workers at the moment who've judged him before he's even opened his mouth to try, because they've just judged that you're not in our camp because you haven't said what we want you to say. Yeah, I get it, but what I'm being shown by spirit, and I'm not saying this is going to materialise, I don't know if it is going to manifest, it's just a timeline that I'm being shown, which is that Charles, as the weaver, I'm hearing, the weaver of different faiths, all faiths, what I'm being shown is he has the ability to get multi-faith leaders around a table. And it needs to be done, not just at a national level, but at a community level. I'm actually seeing something a bit like the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, but it's not like the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, but it's something like that, which is a national scheme whereby this new scheme would be encouraging communities and towns to effectively create a unity panel, unity panel made up of, a Muslim leader, a Christian leader, a Syrian leader, whatever the different, ethnicities are that we're dealing with, but to include that. And it's as though if all could be included in future plans and discussions, and then there starts to be this cross-communication between different communities, because at the moment no one's talking to each other. So I am seeing that Charles has got a role that he could do. Whether he can and whether he does is a different matter. I'll pull a card on what I'm talking about here with Charles. I think the spirit's willing, but the flesh is weak, is what I'm feeling with his energy. He's still battling cancer at the end of the day. He's never really been, since he became king, he's never had the opportunity to, he's never been on full power, basically. We've got the 9 of Swords. Interestingly, I can see cards poking out, so I'm going to pull them. We've got the Hierophant, which is government. We've got the 8 of Swords. And we've got the 3 of Swords. And we've got the 4 of Wands on the top of the deck. I'll just say what I think these cards are saying with regards to Charles. So Charles is about institution. He's about leadership. He's the monarch. He's the figurehead. He doesn't actually have a lot of political power. He might have persuasion. He doesn't have the political power. That's in Downing Street. He does what the government basically asks him to say and do, but he is tormented about much of what's going on in the country right now. I know there's been stuff said that he is concerned, for example, about when Donald Trump comes over. Trump has been quite vocal with regards to the immigration problem we've got here in the country at the moment, and I think Charles is on record of sort of saying something behind the scenes with regards to his, he finds it very unsavoury, the way that it's being talked about. But I think it's wider than that. I just feel as though he feels trapped, to be perfectly honest. He feels trapped. You see, this dragon could also be the St. George dragon, and he's not picking up the sword. He's frightened of it. it ends in disaster for him, basically. The Three of Swords, whatever he does, he's trapped. He's trapped. Eight of Swords. It's very much a mental trap, though. I mean, I do think Charles is fairly intellectual. He's well read, whether you like the guy or not. He's well read. He's well versed in other cultures. He is... It feels like a rabbit stuck in the spotlights type energy. He's caught between a rock and a hard place with regards to this. But anyway, don't want to go on too much about him. I just am being told to tell you that there is an opportunity there for him if he could sort of get his act together and muster his strength to use the dragon's energy to actually help him broker a deal, basically, to get the parties round a table. Okay, I think I've covered most of what I wanted to say in this video. But I want to just reiterate where I started from at the beginning of this video. I've written down here, when a population is not heard or listened to, there will eventually be a backlash. And when people are silenced with no right of reply, and they feel as though they have no control over their own destiny, and when people are frightened, it is a boil that effectively has to burst at some point. The only way that this camp feels that they can speak at the moment is by raising a flag or painting a street. Yet they're mocked over here as being just like some racist dumbass. Whereas there's not. If we could just get to the place of trying to understand each other, that what is actually behind this, apart from the few knuckleheads at the back who probably just are racist and want to fight, well, yeah, there's probably no reasoning with them. But most of the other people in this group are just concerned citizens. They want the best for their country. They want their best for their children. They're worried about their safety. They're worried about their future. They're worried about the economy. There is distrust and mistrust with government, with the groups coming in. They need to be listened to. And this group here need to understand that. But also there's something to learn from these people, of course, as well, because ultimately the good-hearted people in this group are really trying to just make sure, for example, that the human rights advances that have been hard fought over, decades are not lost, that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and that ideally we need a long-term strategy. But there's also naivety, I think, in this group, and I'm just going to say that. It's all very well waving a placard saying, everybody welcome. Fine, open your own home. Open your own home if that is the case. You see it when they're interviewed. It's like, oh, no, I couldn't possibly because, I haven't got a spare room or whatever. There's always an excuse. So I have more respect for people on this side if they're actually willing to open up their home and do it. Put your money where your mouth is, basically. But most aren't prepared to do that. They are wanting somebody else to do that. And they're also wanting somebody else's money to house the flow of people that is just coming in and coming in and coming in and showing no signs of abating. So, yeah, we need to get round the table, basically, and thrash out some of these really, really difficult issues. Right now, not knowing what the answers are, but being prepared to listen to both sides. Anything else to say before I close this down? No, I think I've pretty much said what I want to say. I'm going to end with a few cards from Metatron and Christ Consciousness. Let's go to the Christ Consciousness deck first. Thank you for listening. One of the most important things in this video that I've said is try to be a role model for your children. Whatever your position, and a lot of what the feelings may be very heightened, might feel very passionate about it. But remember, there's a human being on the other end of the argument, basically. There's another human being who, if you're on a spiritual path, and certainly a path of self-mastery, deserves respect at the very least, okay? And government ultimately need to be answerable to the people, and for the change to happen in an official way rather than some sort of lynch mob, So, if you're concerned, talk to your local MP, go through official channels. It's easy just to say, oh, well, nobody's going to bother to listen. If everybody did that, people would start to listen. There's also a place for peaceful protest, of course. We've got the energy of grace. I'm going to end with the story that I gave yesterday on my Instagram and Facebook pages. It's quite a funny story, actually. Let's lighten the mood. We've got the card of grace, blessings and goodwill. We underestimate the power of grace to be able to diffuse a situation. I'm not saying, hear me out. This is the example. I was at the car dealership yesterday getting my car serviced, and minding my own business, basically, and a guy came in absolutely furious, spitting feathers, bright red in the face, and a salesman came out to him, and he basically said, "Can I help you, sir?" And this guy said, he didn't even say, no, what the guy said in response was, "I'm not happy, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not happy." I think it was a phone call hadn't been made or something, but he was really, really rude. And then he said, at the end of the day, he said, "I'm here to spend money, and I'm either going to buy a Mercedes or I'm going to buy an Audi. And right now," pointing at this guy in his face, he said, "right now, you are at -1%. Now, me, as a flawed human being, sitting there watching this, I was sort of half wanting to laugh and half wanted to stand up and tell the guy just to stop being a bloody fool. But I thought, no, Amanda, don't do that. Align yourself to a spiritual perspective. But anyway, the grace came in via the salesman. And what the salesman said was, he said, "I hear you, sir." He said, "I'm sorry for anything that's happened in the past." He said, "That wasn't on my call. What I would suggest we do now is to create a blank slate, a clean page where we can start to talk to each other." And he just said it in a very firm but very graceful way. "I'm offering you a blank page, a clean slate, whatever has happened in the past. Please, can we sit down as grown adults and let's talk about what you want, what your needs are, and let me see if I can help." I think there's power in that moment, because quite frankly, whatever the discussions have been with regards to the problems we have in our country right now, we haven't got very far. There needs to be fresh impetus. There needs to be the energy of the clean slate. There needs to be all people at the table volunteering in energy, time, commitment. I will say this, actually. In a video, I don't know, a few months ago, probably was on Facebook or Instagram, I said, I don't think it was actually even about this problem. Maybe I was just talking generally about the UK. Maybe I was, I can't remember. But I said something along the lines of, do you know what? The communities are going to sort this out themselves. And lo and behold, I didn't know this, but a few weeks later, in my community, Bournemouth, we've got something called Safeguard Force. It's a group of volunteers, men and women, who are patrolling the town centre. And some people are against them, some people are for them. I personally are for them because I can feel the intention of most of the people in that group. They're called the Safeguard Force. And they just go out, they stroll the promenades and the beaches, and they're just on the lookout for any trouble, trying to diffuse it before anything happens. But more than anything, it's a visual deterrent in terms of there's a group of people who are watching, eyes and ears, to record, violence or disorder or, any unpleasantness that might be going on. It reminds me of, oh God, I'm showing my age here. What was it called? Those people of you that are in London in the, when would it have been, 2000 era? It was around the 1990s, 2000. there were some people on the tube. They called themselves the Something Angels, and they used to patrol the tube. And as a woman myself, travelling home late at night, I used to find great comfort if I saw one of these guys. They used to have a beret. I'm sure other countries have it. I'm sure New York probably has something similar. And it's very easy for this group over here to say, oh, they're just a bunch of vigilantes. They're just a bunch of racists wearing a high-vis jacket, getting off on feeling important. Well, you can think that if you want to, but that's not actually the energy of a lot of people here who are just worried about their community, seeing the decline of it and wanting to do something about it, getting off their backside and doing something about it. And you know, ultimately it's about creating an energy, and the energy that they are helping to foster is that it's safe to walk around because there's these people over there. I mean, as well as the police, but of course the police are overstretched. So yeah, interesting, isn't it? Anyway, the energy of grace is what's given to us by Christ consciousness. Let's pull one final card from the Metatron deck. Anything else Metatron has to say? Metatron is asking me to say to you listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning into this video. Thank you for trying to be the best version of yourself that you can be, knowing that these are very difficult things that we are talking about, knowing that also it can bring up a primal instinct. It can also, as I've talked about, fan some ancestral flames that you don't even know are there. I won't say who it is, but it's somebody I know and I've known for a long, long time. And the other day, they said something. I mean, it was quite racist, really. I was really shocked. I had never heard them speak in that way at all. And I was like, whoa, where did that come from? But I'm feeling that it's what Metatron's talking about is, given the right set of circumstances, anything can be whipped up into a frenzy. You know, the truth is we don't like to think of is that, you know, we go out and we put on our clothes and our makeup and, oh, I'm this civilized person. What's the saying? We're only about like 4 meals away from anarchy on the streets, something like that. You know, the veil of civilization is actually much thinner than you think it is. So the answer to it is grace, trying to be graceful in the face of everything that's going on. But the card that's come out is water, emotional well-being, number 7. Takes me to the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto, that if we want peace, we have to be peace. We have to strive for telling the waters within our body that we are peace, that we are unity, that we are love. And also, more than anything, what I'm feeling with this card is that, you know, we know this in other spiritual teachings, that when we focus on a problem too much, we can get bogged. We can't see we just get caught up in the problem, bogged down in it. Can't see the trees for the forest, or whatever the expression is. We have to be in the present moment and feel what we're feeling, but Metatron's also saying, can you please focus on the horizon? And the horizon is the place that we've got to in our world, where even with diminishing resources and a increasing population, and fluctuating birth rates between different cultures, somehow we've got to a place where we're getting on. Somehow we've got to a place where the resources are being shared equally. And I now understand why I saw this card on the bottom of the deck. And I was thinking, what's that got to do with anything? It's the one that's behind me on the wall. This is God's garden. Okay, it's the depiction from the Christ consciousness deck, which is God's garden. In God's garden, everybody is accounted for and is well and is looked after, and there is no fighting because we think that only there isn't enough for everybody. Basically, there's enough resource, but that's the miracle zone to get there. So it's going to be a messy road before we arrive there, let's be honest about it. But your job as a light worker, as I say, is to try to model the energy of grace, compassion, understanding. If you want to stand up for whatever it is you believe you need to stand up for, do so. But just remember the context and the energy that is being emitted, and that person over there is not your enemy. That that's all I can say today, guys. I've gone as far as I feel I can. And want to in this video. It's, I'm sure, a subject we're going to be coming back to a time and time again. I hope it helped. If it did, please share the video. Thank you very much. If the comments are on, I will very much enjoy reading them. If they're off, I think you know that probably it's just because I don't want a load of I just don't want a load of negativity, because this whole video has been about, let's try to raise the vibration, let's try to understand some of the issues. What can we do to help this? What's coming up for ourselves? You know, the community, the idea of community groups getting together. Maybe look at your own social group. Have you got people in that social group of different views? If you haven't, I would really question that. If you've only got people who've got the same political view as you, or the same class as you, that's a British reference, or the same race as you, or the same upbringing as you, well, maybe it's time to broaden that a little bit, because that's how you start to understand different cultures, different ways. That would be a bit of homework as well. But it shouldn't be homework, it should be wanting to explore anyway. I think travel also is a great way to broaden the mind and get perspectives that you can bring back. Okay, guys, I'm hungry. It's lunchtime. I'm going to go now and eat. Take great care. Bye-bye for now. Remember to be aligned to your light, your higher self. Stay in your heart as much as you can. Try your best. That's all we can do. Thank you. Bye-bye.